Are doing everything they can to stop my plans to bring down costs on ordinary families.
Biden sat for an interview with the Associated Press this week, and he said that a recession is, quote, not inevitable, and he rejected the idea that his $2 trillion COVID relief bill contributed at all to inflation. Tarini Parti of the Wall Street Journal is here with us to join the conversation. Tarini, Biden has been telegraphing this for a while. He's blaming Republicans, blaming Putin, but is it working?
So this is a reflection of a few things. There's little he can actually do to control inflation, but what they're realizing is they need to shape the message. They need to push back stronger. So we're seeing the president now try to put sort of as positive of a spin he can on the bad economic numbers in terms of saying, you know, it's not inevitable that a recession could happen, even though there is growing consensus among economic experts that it could happen. We've seen them do this before when we were talking about inflation. They insisted for months that it was transitory and it would go away after a few months. Of course, that didn't happen. So you're seeing the White House try its best at this point, months before the midterm elections, to really try to find its footing on inflation messaging, but it really remains to be seen if that's going to work, because voters are struggling every day with gas prices, with food prices. So, you know, some sort of pushback from the president can only go so far.
Yeah, I mean, as I always say, messaging is only going to go so far when people's realities are a different thing. But Melanie, 3 White House aides went up to the Hill this past week to basically talk to Democrats about this message. I mean, how did that go over?
Not well, to put it mildly. Listen, Democrats, they have been panicking privately. They have been saying for months, back in December, they started pressing the White House to get a handle on inflation, start talking about this issue. They've been pressing Nancy Pelosi to start putting bills on the floor, even if it's just messaging votes, just to show the voters that they're doing something. And when White House officials came, they basically said, blame other people, blame corporate greed, start talking about what we're doing legislatively to attack these issues. But there wasn't a lot of Q&A. They showed up late. So Democrats do not feel like they're going back to their districts armed with the necessary talking points and messaging.
Never good to show up late to a meeting like that.
I mean, it's on brand a bit. But
yeah, I do want to just, for our audience at home, just explain when we talk about what the Fed is doing on inflation, what it actually means for people. And it basically means that things get more expensive. Mortgage rates are higher, credit card and car loan rates are higher. It's harder for small businesses to borrow. Stocks tend to fall. There was a story just yesterday about cooling demand, perhaps, for not just goods, but also services. And that sounds like a bad thing, but it actually is kind of what they want to happen.
Right, because we're not talking about the fact that people are still shopping.
Yeah.
Their gas is high, the groceries are high, but there is a good degree of demand going on, and that's playing into
this.
It's
too much demand.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is that things are going to get more expensive. Things are going to be out of reach. Home buying, for example. How is that going to play as we go into a midterm cycle where the goal is to taper inflation, but it might mean more pain for voters?
Yeah, the triple whammy of high inflation, high interest rates, is and then a lower 401k for a lot of Americans.
People feel like they're losing their money.
Yeah, who are near retirees or are retirees. That's a hell of a combination for a lot of American voters, and it does tend to focus the mind politically, and it focuses the mind against the party in power. And so, you know, to your point, Abby, Biden can message this as much as he wants, but when people are paying $5 and $6 a gallon of gas or checking the website of their 401k and seeing that red, that's pretty hard to overcome, and it just reinforces the kind of sour mood that a lot of Americans are in right now. And so it's going to create real headwinds. And I think the frustration the Democrats have is that the Biden folks have known this for months now, and there's still no clear plan to confront it beyond trying to turn the tables on the GOP. But even Biden doesn't do that consistently. And I think that's another frustration as well, is Biden will give a speech occasionally, but it's not done consistently. There is no week-to-week message that Biden is capable of driving. And I think that is going to cause even deeper anger in the party going forward.
There's one big outstanding issue. I mean, there are probably a couple big outstanding issues, but one of them is tariffs on China that Trump put into place, and that many economists say you should lift because A, they don't work, and B, they could help with inflation. But Biden is taking the slow road and making a decision about this.
He is. He calls himself, the most pro-union president ever. So we're seeing businesses and labor on the opposite sides of this decision. So that's factoring into his decision making. My colleagues at the Wall Street Journal have a great story this weekend on how Biden's decision-making process is frustrating a lot of Democrats because he's so slow in figuring these things out, not just tariffs, but also student loans. He's been sort of slow walking that. So there's a lot of debate right now. Another factor into the tariffs decision is how this plays on China. Like there are a lot of Republicans who've been messaging a lot on being tough on China, President Trump, former President Trump being one of them. So how that decision would factor into the politics of China.
And none of this is like you flipping a switch. I mean,
Right.
You do it now, maybe you might see the effects before November. So I think that is playing a little bit more into the anxiety as well. Coming up next for us, democracy under threat, how a few men and women in key jobs could try to steal the election in 2024.